Help me, my wife's dead.
The 911 call was pretty eerie. He had just found his wife.
Is she breathing at all? Nothing?
No, touch me.
Okay, is she beyond CPR?
Yes.
What did the robber look like?
He looked like her dad.
The Kelly Clayton case is one of the most shocking stories in recent history. Thomas Clayton, a former hockey star, thought he had committed the perfect crime. He believed no one could link him to his wife's murder, but what he didn't know was that a 7-year-old witness saw everything. This young child's testimony would become crucial in the investigation. In today's special episode, we will explore how justice finally caught up with Thomas Clayton. The peaceful neighborhood of Caton, New York, was shaken to its core in September 2015 by the brutal murder of 35-year-old Kelly Clayton. The news of her death not only brought shock and sorrow, but also a sense of fear and disbelief among the residents. The murder of Kelly, the wife of former hockey player Thomas Clayton, was a crime that was both brutal and chilling, involving not just a vicious attack, but also the presence of her young children, Cullen and Charlie, who were caught up in the horrifying events. Kelly was discovered dead in her own home on Ginnon Road. Her husband, Thomas Clayton, reported the crime to the authorities after he allegedly returned home from a poker game to find his wife's lifeless body on the kitchen floor. The call to 911 was made by Thomas himself, but the details he provided were sparse and unclear, raising questions almost immediately. But that's nothing, because soon in the video, a new piece of evidence from Charlie's testimony will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about that night. Upon arrival, the responding officers were met with a gruesome scene. Kelly's body bore the signs of a violent struggle. There was blood on the walls, the floor, and even the stairs, indicating she had been attacked in her bedroom and then dragged downstairs to the kitchen. The house itself was in disarray, with broken objects and signs of a struggle evident throughout. Despite the brutality of the scene, there were no immediate signs of forced entry, which was one of the first puzzling elements that the investigators had to contend with. This lack of forced entry suggested that the attacker might have been someone familiar to the family, someone who could enter the house without causing a disturbance. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that the focus would inevitably fall on Thomas Clayton. Known for his gambling habits, Thomas had a considerable amount of cash in the house, yet none of it appeared to be missing. This further complicated the narrative of a robbery gone wrong. Also, there were no visible injuries on Thomas, and he had no blood on him, which was unusual given the amount of blood found at the crime scene. One of the most heartbreaking aspects of this case was the presence of Kelly and Thomas's young children. Charlie, their 7-year-old daughter, became an essential witness. She provided a chilling account of the night her mother was murdered. According to Charlie, she saw a man hurting her mom, and her mom told her to run. In her child's way of understanding and protecting, Charlie did not leave the house, but instead ran to her brother Cullen's room to be with him. Later, she went back to her mother, hugging her leg, and described the attacker as having eyes like her dad's. The child's testimony was both heart-wrenching and crucial. It painted a picture of a home invasion that was intimate and terrifyingly close to the family. Sheriff Jim Allard, understanding the sensitivity of interviewing a child who had witnessed such trauma, brought in a child forensic investigator. Charlie's detailed recollection provided key insights that would shape the direction of the investigation. As law officials pieced together the evidence, they discovered that Kelly had been contemplating divorce due to ongoing troubles in her marriage with Thomas. This new information added another layer of complexity to the case. Thomas's financial situation and personal habits, combined with the marital strife, gave investigators a motive that was previously unclear. The investigation, led by Captain Eric Tyner from the Steuben County Sheriff's Office, became more intensive as they sought to uncover the truth behind Kelly's murder. Multiple agencies were involved, and the search for evidence extended to a pond behind the Clayton residence, which was thoroughly examined and even emptied in the pursuit of any clues that might have been discarded. The crime scene itself was meticulously processed. The lack of forced entry, the detailed forensic evidence, and Charlie's testimony all pointed towards a crime that was deeply personal and premeditated. The investigators had to consider all angles, including the possibility of a staged robbery intended to mislead them. As more details emerged, it became evident that this was not a random act of violence, but rather a calculated murder. The struggle that ensued in the house was brutal, starting in the bedroom and escalating to the kitchen. This violent confrontation left physical evidence that corroborated the young girl's statements. Investigators worked tirelessly to piece together the events from that night, looking for any clue that might lead them to the suspect. The girl's detailed account provided critical insights, aligning with the forensic evidence collected at the scene. Suspicions grew stronger against Thomas Clayton, who was ultimately arrested for the murder of his wife on October 2, 2015. Despite this arrest, many questions remained unanswered, particularly regarding Thomas's motive. Friends and family members described Thomas and his wife as a loving couple, making it difficult to understand why he would commit such a heinous act. However, deeper investigation revealed another side to Thomas. His niece, who had worked for him during the summer, recounted how he had confided in her about his failing marriage. He spoke of multiple affairs and his fear of losing everything if he divorced his wife. This revelation, combined with a recent increase in his wife's life insurance policy, painted a more sinister picture. Interviews with Thomas's friends and colleagues revealed a pattern of infidelity and dissatisfaction with his wife. Many women came forward, admitting to having affairs with Thomas, who often complained about his wife, calling her lazy and ungrateful. These relationships were confirmed through cell phone records, showing that Thomas was not as devoted as he seemed. During his interrogation, Thomas provided an alibi, claiming he was at a friend's house for a weekly poker game. This alibi was initially supported by his friends, complicating the investigation. However, his niece's information about Michael Beard, a former employee with a troubled history, redirected the focus. Michael Beard had a motive for revenge. Desperate and facing eviction, Michael's situation made him a plausible suspect. Despite his initial denial of any ill will towards Thomas, further questioning and a failed polygraph test raised suspicions. Michael's wife provided crucial information about his whereabouts on the night of the murder, indicating he left their home and returned much later, matching the timeline of the crime. After the struggle, Michael Beard left Kelly Clayton on the kitchen floor and rushed back to his vehicle without setting the fire he had planned. The case intensified with Beard's arrest. His DNA was found inside the house, and swabs from bloodstains near Charlie's room confirmed his presence during the murder. Beard detailed to the police where they could find the murder weapon and other items connected to the crime. Police searched covertly in various locations, including East 14th Street and near Hall Street in Elmira. They discovered a yellow handle of a mall matching a piece found in the house. This handle was identified by a coworker as from a mall that had broken a day before at the Clayton property. Also, the state police recovered a bag of Michael's clothing from a swamp, which tested positive for Kelly's blood. Keys to the house were also retrieved from a shallow creek. Michael's detailed confession was further supported by his accomplice, Mark Blandford, who claimed he was unaware of the planned murder. Mark admitted to being on the lookout while Michael committed the crime, adding credibility to the evidence against Michael. Linda Miller, a member of Clayton's poker circle, recalled Thomas's suspicious behavior, including using her phone that night, which raised further questions about his involvement. Following the violent murder of Kelly Clayton, the investigation unfolded with meticulous detail, revealing a chilling sequence of events that ultimately led to convictions for Thomas Clayton and Michael Beard. Forensic analysis of the crime scene, including blood spatter patterns and fingerprints, confirmed Michael Beard's presence during the murder. It was discovered that Thomas Clayton had orchestrated the crime, hiring Beard to carry out the brutal act. Evidence mounted against Clayton as investigators traced his communications with Beard through texts, calls, and emails. Clayton had even purchased a disposable phone specifically for coordinating the murder. His internet searches on hiring hitmen further solidified his role in the deadly scheme. During Beard's trial, he confessed to being hired by Clayton and detailed how he struck Kelly with a baseball bat while Clayton waited nearby. Despite initially recanting his confession, Beard's testimony under oath provided crucial insight into the planning and execution of the murder. Key pieces of evidence included GPS data that tracked Beard's movements leading up to the crime, showing his departure from home shortly after receiving a phone call from Clayton during a poker game. Security footage corroborated Beard's actions, capturing him using a bicycle provided by Clayton to travel to and from the crime scene. Thomas Clayton's trial was a highly publicized affair, featuring extensive witness testimonies and a comprehensive presentation of over 400 pieces of evidence by the prosecution. The jury deliberated for just 6 hours before delivering a verdict of guilty on first-degree murder charges against Clayton. His defense team contested the lack of concrete evidence directly linking him to the murder plot, but the overwhelming circumstantial evidence and witness testimonies sealed his fate. The verdict brought closure to Kelly Clayton's grieving family and community, who remembered her as a beloved mother, wife, and respected realtor known for her kindness and dedication. In the aftermath of the trial, the Clayton family released statements expressing their profound grief and requesting privacy as they coped with the loss of Kelly. Thomas Clayton was sentenced to life in prison without parole and incarcerated at Sing Sing Prison in New York. Similarly, Michael Beard received life sentences for both first-degree and second-degree murder, serving his time at Auburn Correctional Facility. And now, if you want to see something similar to this, then you should check out this video on your screen.